with clean energy. So it's not an organisation that has an idea to do something good. It is deeply ingrained in our legislation. So it really does give us good operating licence. When I thought about the conference sort of topic around disruption, I racked my little brain and thought, what's been disruption in sort of my world that I could bring a bit of context to, and the disinformation and information fragmentation. New Zealand local media from a fourth estate perspective is under incredible pressure, which I think is probably going on around the world as well, I'm sure. But New Zealand, small market, real challenges. There's some incredible social marketing work coming out of New Zealand, I think, with Indigenous sovereignty and solution ownership from Māori perspective, by Māori for Māori, which I think is incredible. I don't know, there's a bit of a challenge maybe that some of this collaboration, co-creation is driving us to a consensus-based model and maybe limiting some boldness because we need everyone in the room to agree. That's something interesting. Or something smart about AI, but I am not the guy to talk about that, which I've discovered over the past couple of days. So what has been the biggest disruption? For us, it's been the fourth P that I often say in social marketing terms. This is the one we have to worry about, not the others, and that's politics. Now, I'm not going to advocate one side or the other for politics. I'm not that brave. I have mortgages to pay and children to feed, you saw earlier, for my family. But New Zealand politics has shifted dramatically, and that has been a massive disruptor to public sector social marketing concepts and initiatives and programs. We have swung from probably the furthest left to the furthest right we've been in maybe 25 years. And that's manifested in a political environment that would like to see a smaller government that is trying to get an economy back on track from their perspective. And that has meant really big budget cuts. That has meant big slices to the public service and the public sector. You can see from some of the headlines. Again, I'm not saying this is right or wrong. It's just the world we're in. And social marketing programs, they're not far down a list when it comes to cutting. Let's be honest, they're often seen as the nice-to-haves that surround it. You do not do less heart surgeries, but you can cut programs, and we're seeing that quite a lot across Wellington and the country. And it's programs run by central government, but also central government funds a lot of NGOs, and that funding's been cut and challenged through this as well. So that's a bit of our context. And it was a really interesting context for EECA to then our organisation to want to land which is pretty bread and butter for us, a winter 2023 campaign to support Kiwis to reduce energy use, therefore reduce energy bills. There's a lot of wastage happens in homes through energy use, and we wanted to support that. And again, as I said earlier, EECA's legislated to really work in this space. So this was pretty bread and butter for us, pretty safe. I'll show you the campaign. It's nothing too out there. But we've got to remember this context of politics, I guess. This is just to give you a rough, because we make ads, we should show ads, right? This is a quick 15-seconder around the campaign, I guess.
Did you know you can save up to $400 a year just by being on the right power plan?
No way!
Yes way! Use the Power Switch website to check which plan is best for your whānau. Quick, easy and free. Just another tip to save this winter.
Yeah, pretty much does what it says on the tin. Really nice mass media campaign, fully integrated with community. We developed great resources. We partnered with, I think, 2,000 community partners who delivered those resources. We massively outweighted in-home support. We had a range of mass media, TVC, all a brilliant full surrounded campaign, but pretty safe. Hosted by a Kiwi comedian, and really stuck to that sort of principle of single non-dividable behaviours. So, this wasn't bundling stuff up, just saying, hey, New Zealand, save a bit of power. We really got into the nitty-gritty around, here's the actions you can do, here's the money they can save. So this was the first comment from a political commentator that came out, I think, about 40 minutes after the campaign launched.
Did you?
Oh, no. Oh. Oh, no, I was going to say some good things about how it performed. The campaign went really well. Before I'm going to say what went wrong, let's say what went right. Reached a lot of New Zealanders, a couple of million Kiwis could recall the campaign. It's basically 60% of the population. High likability. Now, I know likability doesn't mean behaviour change, but it's really important for social licence. 1.7 million Kiwis from a self-reported survey took some form of action from the campaign. 83% of Māori and Pacific took some action from the campaign and could recall it. And that's really important, because Māori and Pacific in New Zealand suffer disproportionately in pretty much everything actually, but energy hardship specifically is a real challenge. And we saw a 27% increase in switch requests at Power Switch. So that's the New Zealand tool that allows you to switch power companies, and I'm guessing it's the same in Australia and actually quite globally. We don't shift very often, so they are big numbers to shift. And what's great about that is that's a really tangible financial result we can see. So that's the good stuff. But this was the quote that came out about 20 minutes after the campaign launched. Got quite political quite quickly. And it got spicy. You know, there's nothing like sitting watching the Prime or the future Prime Minister bag your campaign. What we did though, and I said earlier that New Zealand went from left and right, we did quite a bit for bipartisanship because the left hated it and so did the right. So, we can bring people together if nothing else. But here we are 2 years later, new government in this financial context, about to launch the same campaign this winter. So 2 years since all of that kicked off, we're about to relaunch again this winter. How do we do that? And that kind of brings, this was a really long story to get to the title, but pitch the finance, not the philosophy, and this idea of ROI modelling as a tool to get social marketing initiatives safe if you're existing, or off the ground if you're looking to pitch, because the current environment of taking up an idea because it's the right thing to do will not keep your funding. We were able to go to our minister and to the Minister of Finance and say, look, our modelling showing for every dollar you invest in this program will save you $3 on consumer power bills. You're worried about affordability. Your current tool is a winter energy payment where you just give people cash. That's pure one for one. So, that was the framing. And then we externally evaluated our ROI and delivered $3.06 for every dollar invested. So we can actively say to our minister, look, social marketing can disproportionately affect energy affordability for the investment you make. So don't worry, Minister, that we're going into people's lounges and telling them, to turn their heater down. That's not what we're doing, Minister. We are getting you a 3-to-1 return on investment, and it shifts that conversation around how to get work off the ground. So it seems like a good idea, but why isn't everyone doing it? So I canvassed a lot of my colleagues and the network in New Zealand. Modelling's quite scary, and it's not a skill set that often sits in project teams when you're developing this type of work. Money's often seen as funding, so we've got this funding parcel to spend. It's not, a bit of this commercial mindset. It's not seen as capital to invest. Let's invest this $1 million to save $3 million. It's let's spend this $1 million on a campaign. There's still a bit of fear of accountability and a fear that attribution's just too hard. I think, sometimes in our co-creation world, when we bring everyone in the room, we do get a wee bit of a challenge that, this campaign's the right thing to do, it helps people, it's good, and sick children aren't dollar figures, that's horrendous, but there's a reality it's both. And I think the overriding when we talk is people like the idea but have no idea where to begin, which was the same for us at EECA, but one thing we had was an incredible floor of researchers, doctors, energy experts, modelers, energy financial modelers. So I basically went downstairs and said, help. And we started from there. We did the first ourselves. It was a bespoke thing. We got it evaluated, and it was evaluated that our ROI was likely conservative. But then we created a model, and I've got to say that New South Wales has done some incredible work in this space in 2017, and we have taken a lot from that. Have we just put our logo on the front of theirs? Not quite, but it's not horrendously far away either. And we've created our own model, a framework for economic evaluation of social marketing interventions. The framework has sort of 9 key steps that you really need to work through, and I think this isn't the model for the initiative. You still do our framing and our proper program planning. This is for the ROI, but really defining the scope becomes crucial, and I think when you're designing the scope of an intervention, it's quite easy to go, we'll do a little bit of this and a little bit of this, but when it comes down to that, every little bit, if that's not driving to the return on investment, you've got to be very clear. State the objectives of the intervention alongside a theory of change. I think we're probably doing a lot of that. You need to establish the baseline scenario, and this is where the modelling gets a bit more complicated in understanding the future trajectory. Is it a flat baseline? Is it a trending baseline? So you actually need to know your growth is higher than the trending trajectory. It gets complicated, but it's key. You need to know your costs. You need to know the benefits that you're going to create, and then obviously quantifying and assessing values to those benefits. And again, this is where the shallow guy who's pitching this but not doing it gets a wee bit out of depth, but this is where you bring in discount rates, this is where you bring future energy pricing challenges, which is, it's modelling, right? And through that becomes sensitivity analysis. You want to get this as close as you can, but you can't get it perfect. You evaluate your net benefits and return on investment, and then you obviously need to understand how the work you did, in this case the campaign, performed, to then be able to apply the ROI framework and model to understand how it played out. Lots and lots of evidence behind it, but I think the key for me is this is evidence from a range of places, and we've heard a bit about that over the last couple of days, of actually putting ourselves outside of the social marketing realm and saying, actually, how does Treasury approach this? Because in the end, Treasury's signing a lot of this stuff off. So if you haven't got Treasury on board at this level, it's not going anywhere, and Treasury does not care that it's a nice thing to do. New South Wales, that cost-benefit analysis framework is incredible. I suggest if you're interested in this space, that's good. And then some bespoke actual projects that have applied it as well. I think it's fair to say, and this is a bit of criticism we've had, that energy is quite easy to do this. Energy has a cost attached. Therefore reduce this, save this. That's totally fair. But we are now working with other departments to apply this to some more complex sort of situations. We're working with NZTA to apply ROI on someone considering buying a higher safety rated vehicle. So not even doing an ROI on did they buy it, even the ROI on increasing consideration and how that flows through. So look, the further you're away from the flame, the wider the sort of modelling does go. But it is showing that actually we can put value against this work, which is just a real shift in how we can pitch it. How am I going for time? Talking very fast, so. Oh, brilliant. All right, I've only got 2 slides. You're going to get a bit of breathing space. 8 key takeaways. I think in our current reality, particularly in New Zealand, but I'm guessing everywhere, our programs and initiatives we want to run aren't being compared to other programs. They're being compared to other complete initiatives across government. Doing an ROI and social return on investment modelling actually allows you to be compared to those other programs. So it widens your potential funding buckets, as opposed to we can only play in this space. Actually, if this is more cost effective than some completely different intervention, we can pitch for that. We've discovered you can't do it for everything, and you can tie yourself in knots. So we've kind of drawn a line that you need $1 million investment in New Zealand to be able to do this. That will scale, but some of the learnings certainly apply across. Look, this room probably doesn't do this, which I'm really enjoying at this conference, but I think from a practitioner world, you can confuse outcome ROIs to output ROIs. Look, we did this great PR and we got $1 million worth of PR for a $10,000 spend. Yeah, it's not really the ROI, is it? Don't fear informed assumptions. Modelling is just assumptions. We have no idea what the energy price will be in 10 years. If we knew that, you could be very, very rich. But there's some really good assumptions in modelling out there which will give an indication, and which leads to the next one. And in this space, the ROI, it really is a game of overs and unders. And I don't want to dumb it down too much or make it sound simplistic, but there is a reality that some of your assumptions will be more conservative, which will allow, if some of your others aren't, actually it comes kind of out in the wash at the end. I think leading with the ROI, this is new and is taking a bit of a sell across town, but going into the minister's office or going into the funder or putting the pitch together, with the idea that, look, don't worry about what we're actually going to do. Worry that this is going to save you considerable money compared to these other investments. And leading with that, because it sort of takes some of this, I think the title, not the philosophy. When these same ministers are worried about being seen as a nanny state or being told how New Zealanders how to live their lives, if that's the overriding message when you go in, you're just never going to win. But if you can kind of go in and get some runs on the board with, look, this is an incredibly cost-effective program to run, it builds your credibility with the finance. It builds your credibility to then say, look, you might not like the way we're doing it, but remember, this returns well. Oh my gosh, give it a go. I think that's probably a key finding. You don't have to release it to the world. Just keep draft on it for those in the OAA world. But give it a go, and you can do it to understand how this has performed with the idea that maybe the next initiative will fully apply. And then I think this idea of not starting from scratch. The New South Wales model is incredible, and our framework is totally Creative Commons. It's free for all to use. It's really applicable, and really happy to share that. So I think, sort of in summary, Yeah, in a time of disruption and cynicism to publicly funded social marketing interventions, and make no mistake, in New Zealand, that's a lot of the world we're in right now, this approach allows your program to sort of come out of that philosophical quagmire and make it an economically smart decision. And in the end, we want funded great programs out there, so if you've got to do this to get it there, it's well worth it. Thank you.